Hey folks, this is Tesla. Hey folks, this is Spectre, Tesla Spectre. I have today some really interesting news because there was a publication by the Bundeswehr University in Germany, a team of scientists from there, which has been published under the Creative Commons license. So everybody can download the full issue. In the journal Renewable and Sustainable Energy Reviews, volume 159, May 2022. And it's about the total CO2 equivalent life cycle emissions from commercially available passenger cars. Now that sounds rather boring, but factually it is super interesting. And they also publish overall pictures and graphs, which I will include in the small video I'm doing here, but it's exciting results. The first major thing is they did not do just a test of one or two cars. They actually analyzed the CO2 equivalent greenhouse gas emissions of 790 different commercially available vehicles and variants of these vehicles. So that's really broad. And in short, the total life cycle emissions of these hybrid and electric cars among all those cars were massively reduced by up to 89%, depending on where the electricity came from, etc., compared to ICE vehicles. So that is just huge. And they also say that these modern battery recycling systems, which are already available, can really counterbalance the production emission because, of course, if you take, for example, a Tesla Model 3 Standard Plus, as it was formerly known, the study found that that one produces a kind of additional production emission equivalent to driving emissions of, for example, Passat 2.0 TSI after 18,000 kilometers. So you have to drive 18,000 kilometers until you outbalance that. But still, this is just, of course, completely enormous and should not be underestimated. And they did a really nice comparison. They started with the production emissions, so mainly body and batteries. Then they moved towards the emissions generated by using a car. That is, of course, mainly fuel and electricity. But then they also looked at what emissions are produced when you recycle the car. So the recycling of the body, the batteries, the disposal. All of that was fed then into a database with 790 different models of cars from all kinds of backgrounds. And then from all of that, they generated this evaluation comparison. And for example, if we look at the graphic that they produced, and you see, let's say on the very left side, the Passat TSI, we know that TSI is probably the worst when it comes to emissions. That one is on the very left side, where you see that the production emission is substantially lower than, for example, on the very right side, where you have the Tesla Model 3, formerly known as standard range. As we said before, the difference needs about 18,000 kilometers, or is equivalent to 18,000 kilometers of usage. But over a lifetime, it really doesn't matter much. You also see that the counterbalancing emissions during recycling, so the lesser the better, here already counterbalance that probably between the two models. And then look at the red column, that is the utilization emission. So that's what a car produces while it's driven during its life cycle. And their TSI engines, of course, are the worst. So that's really pretty terrible. And but you also see that if you go through the different models, you see different types, and these are just very selected models. And the most efficient one they have here is the Tesla Model 3 Standard Range Plus. And then we can also even have a look at this table they did on the relative reduction over a total life cycle, so including everything: production, utilization, recycling. And it's not only electricity that looks good, actually, and it also depends on how you use it. But you see that the reference baseline was, of course, gasoline, which is the worst. Then diesel, funnily, has a slightly better CO2 life cycle result than gasoline, 22% better, which is not that low. I personally, not being an engineer or something, I was surprised. But then next on the list is the compressed natural gas, which is of course also fossil. So these three are the fossils, but the compressed natural gas, CNG, is already like nearly 50% better than the gasoline. But then we move into the other areas, and interesting, hydrogen with 60% is not really that great, which seems to me pretty logical, because first you have to produce hydrogen to then merge it again with oxygen to water. Seems to be a bit of a weird cycle to me. But the compressed biogas, that has a very, very good one. So far, I don't know that that is anywhere a major trend. So maybe that would be an option. For example, I don't know about it, but it could be an option to go for a second kind of trend next to electricity, because it might be cheaper to produce cars which use compressed biogas. I don't know, but it seems to be. I mean, LG, they did not test here, obviously. But then they also have the hybrids, gasoline plus electricity and diesel plus electricity. There, of course, the electricity part is always better, but we have to see that most plug-in hybrids, unfortunately, are never charged, or very seldomly. So if we then also take into account that most of these cars are heavy SUVs, driven as company cars for the tax benefit, this is probably still the most discussable part, because they, of course, test it as they are, and as they should be used, but that doesn't mean that they are used like that. So anyway, and then we see electricity, and electricity is between 65 and 89%. That depends then also a lot on what kind of battery is produced. They explain that in the study, or what kind of electricity production is behind it. Now, obviously, if you use coal to produce the electricity, that's worse than if you use any kind of water, sun, or wind, so any kind of organic production. But still, even if you do it by generating electricity in the dirty way, it's still a lot better. So I found that a quite fascinating study, which I just wanted to share with you briefly. I will also put, of course, the link to it, and you also see there is already the proper citation. So have a good one, and if you like it, please give me a like and maybe also subscribe. That would be terrific. And you can also have a look at all my other videos. I did a video, for example, just now on consumption related to elevation on one of my trips, where more of these kind of short videos will come. But I also did two kind of meditative winter road trips, which you could look at, and various others, down to showing you how a registration and insurance of a car works here if you're a foreigner in the Czech Republic. Okay, take care, folks. Bye-bye.